Welcome back to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton. I'm Ollie Hayes, and today I'm bringing you Southampton versus Everton extra time match review. Joined today by Mike from the Unholy Trinity podcast. How you doing, Mike?
Not too bad, mate. Not too bad. Obviously, a few days after the weekend, so
Yeah,
gradually coming to terms, gradually getting over it and looking ahead to the weekend.
yeah, we've got a lot to unpack, especially after that performance on Saturday. But we might as well start, early doors on Saturday. What were your thoughts going into that game? Were you confident? Were you optimistic?
100%. I expected a reaction post Fulham. It was the Fulham game was poor. We got away with one, for want of a better phrase, with getting that late equaliser, and I thought we'd see some kind of reaction. Going to what I think is a really poor side, a side who were without a win. And I thought, it was an opportunity for the managers to maybe do something a little bit different with the issues we had at, number 10 with McNeil was a serious doubt. Beto was, not Beto, sorry, Decore was obviously he missed the game in the end. And I thought he might go with two up top with Calvert-Lewin and Beto. And he didn't. He went with his usual setup, which is predictable. And it was another really poor performance. And it's getting now, as I say, because we're so predictable. I think it's easy for sides and opponents to do the homework on us and know exactly how we're going to play.
Yeah, spot on. I think a team like Southampton as well. Listen, I'm quite cynical about Everton. I went into that game, quite worried. I think it was like 23, 24 games in the Premier League that they've not won. So, it was prime Everton to rock up and give them their first win in the Premier League. But I was a little bit worried going into the game, considering the type of team that Southampton are. Obviously, they came to Goodison in the Carabao Cup and pretty much played us off the park. I think they had 70, 80% possession in that game and obviously narrowly went through on penalties. So, it did feel like a very big chance for Southampton. And as you said, we are quite predictable in terms of the way we play. And I feel like it came, into Southampton's hands in that sense. I think we played right into their hands and their style of play. But what were your thoughts on the lineup going into that game? Obviously the big omission was no Jared Branthwaite once again. He was stuck to the bench in place of Michael Keane. So what were your thoughts on the lineup going into that game?
That was the biggest puzzle, wasn't it? Really, you can sort of semi forgive the decision when he first came back and he was put on the bench, obviously against Fulham, and he wasn't obviously he didn't even travel to Ipswich when he was fit, and he was put on the bench against Fulham and given a few minutes at the end. But you thought going into the Southampton game, you've got your best defender, one of your best players that sit on the bench. Surely he's gonna come in to that starting 11, and that was the first thing when you saw it, and you just thought, I can't for the life of me understand how you can leave that quality of player on the bench in our situation. It's not as if we're awash with talents all over the park.
Yeah,
It's not as if Michael Keane's playing like Beckenbauer. And he needs to stay in that side. And to be fair, you look at Tarkowski. I know he's had his injury issues this season, but if you're going to question the decision making of the manager, the question is who drops out forwards. Jared Branthwaite, not a case of does he come in or doesn't he come in. It's which one of the two goes out for me.
yeah.
But he brings so much calm to the side. Whether it's Jordan Pickford, whether it's the other defenders, he's a quality footballer. His range of passing is good. He can carry the ball well. He's great in the air. He's quick. He's strong. He's powerful. He's everything. He's a threat in the box. And you just think, I just can't get over the fact that he's sitting on the bench. And then you combine that with, as I said earlier on about not doing something a little bit different when you've got issues at the number 10 position. I was happy to see Lindstrom get another go. I think he needs games. I don't think he was spectacular, but he's one of those players who will go at a fullback and he can put a decent ball in. And I want to see more of him. If it's him or Harrison, I'd like to see a bit more Lindstrom get a go. He does need more game time to adapt to the Premier League. But the big question was, why isn't Jared Branthwaite starting the game? And it's I think 99.9% of Evertonians just can't understand that decision.
No, I completely agree. I think the biggest thing that you said and the biggest point at which I can agree with was who comes out of the side for Jared Branthwaite. I think there probably is a case for Michael Keane staying in that team. Obviously, he's not been playing, as you said, like Beckenbauer, but he's been putting in consistently decent performances in at centre half, and maybe James Tarkowski, as you said, with his injury issues, and he's been faltering in terms of consistency this season. Would it be better for a partnership of maybe Branthwaite and Keane? But you're spot on by saying it's for who they go in for, not a question if he goes in. So, and yeah, I completely agree with your Lindstrom point as well. I think he was obviously unlucky not to play against Ipswich in that game. I think Leif Davis was all at sea against Everton in that game, and Jack Harrison had so much time and space on that right hand side, which I think Lindstrom maybe would have capitalised more. Obviously, Lindstrom was ill for that afternoon at Portman Road, but. Yeah, I thought he came on against Fulham and did a decent job. Got us back into that game with a few decent passes here and there, and then obviously he was given his full chance against Southampton, which, yeah, I think he did play okay. I think would I say he took his chance over Jack Harrison? Maybe not. I don't think he, really imposed himself onto Sean Dyche as much as he maybe would have wanted to, and I think he was quite critical of himself after the game. But in that first half, especially. I think he was probably one of the players that was looking like he could create the most. And that first half, it was quite devoid of chances. There wasn't really a lot of chances for Everton or Southampton in that sense. But I think the first half performance, maybe Jesper Lindstrom probably tipped it in terms of our players on the pitch.
Yeah, he did. And as I say, it's all about adapting for these players that have come in. Obviously, we've seen him hit the ground running, but he's played in this country
Mm,
before. Obviously, the championship is a frantic league as well. And because he's got that added pace, he's got fantastic feet. It's been a bit easier for him. But Lindstrom's got pace as well, but he does need to be given opportunities. I think obviously we look at the games that he has come in. The cup game against Southampton when he missed two really really
mm,
good chances, one on one with the goalkeeper. If he sticks one of them away, maybe it doesn't does his confidence the world of good. Like you say, he's had the illness as well. But when you're looking at the impact of Harrison, especially in recent weeks, he can't do any worse. His
mm,
impact surely won't be as any worse. And I won't sit here and say Harrison. I think he's got, I don't mind Harrison. I think his work rate's good. I think
mm,
his end product is poor.
mm,
We certainly need more from our wider players, from our number 10 and midfielders in terms of goals and assists. But, there's no reason why Lindstrom, you look at the quality of player that he is and the level that he's played at, why he can't come in and stamp his authority. But it will take a little bit of time.
mm.
And I think it's always difficult when you get a player in on loan when, he's only got, 38, maybe 40 games
Yeah.
as an opportunity to stamp his authority. But I do think he will come good. But as you say, first half he probably did shady for us. It wasn't really difficult. It was a standoffish
Mm,
performance where we're giving them 75% of 70% possession. You'd like to see us. I know we're not a possession side, but against that kind of
mm,
opposition, we put the press on, put an effective press. Don't just be going one at a time. Go as hunting twos and threes, put them under pressure. There's a reason why they hadn't won a game all season, and
yeah.
Everton have gone there as if they're playing against a Manchester City or an Arsenal or Liverpool and sat off. And for me, that's the biggest issue with this side is the fact it's just so predictable. It's an action replay every single week. If you look at
Mm.
social media when the game's going on, for example, you get exactly the same comments all the time on your feed, and that shows you that something's got to change for us to be more
Mm.
effective.
No, definitely. I think about your first point about a player coming in on loan. One player that I did think played well in that first half was Oro Mangala. I thought he was a player that obviously came in kind of acrimonious circumstances in the summer, obviously with the whole John Textor thing and how he was, potentially taking over Everton. That felt like a deal that was very much done by John Textor. But I do think Mangala's come into the side and done quite well. I think he looked, quite comfortable alongside Idrissa Gana Gueye in that sense. And I thought he played well and maybe has imposed himself more than Lindstrom is. But obviously, as you said, it's that adaptability thing, isn't it? As you said with Njai, he's hit the ground running quite early, and also Mangala has hit the ground running quite early in an Everton shirt. I think he's putting in decent performances, but they're both players that have played in the UK already. So as you said with Lindstrom, it's probably going to take a little bit more time in terms of him adapting to the Premier League, him adapting to the pace. But I think there's definitely a player in there, as you said, and he's definitely got pace to hurt teams. So I'm hoping we can see more, consistency from him in terms of game time and giving a little bit more of a run in the team. But also, as you said about the rinse and repeat style that we play, as you said, I think it's annoying seeing the reaction after games, isn't it? It's annoying seeing how it seems to be the same mistakes week in, week out that we're making. Obviously, Dyche is setting up a team that he thinks is good enough to win the game. He's setting up, tactically how we think we've got enough to win the game. But if you're standing off a team like Southampton, with all due respect to them, and I've said this multiple times in the aftermath of the Ipswich game as well, with all due respect to teams like this, they are, between Championship and League One quality. Unfortunately, I don't think Southampton have the required quality to be in the league. and that's no disrespect to them. I just think that's showing the gap between the Premier League and Championship. So when you're setting up so negative against these teams and giving them all the ball, and it might, dent the confidence and dent the morale of the team because the manager's setting them up as if a team that we can't play football when in reality we should be trying to be positive and go on to Southampton and try and create our own chances rather than feed off scraps. So I think that's probably the one thing which I agree with you there. It's a little bit disappointing to see it's just rinse and repeat after the game.
Yeah, and I think it was Ashley Young who alluded to it, I think, post Fulham and in the build up to the Southampton game. And he said, the manager's been very, very keen to stress about them staying in a shape. Now, you go back to the start of the season, those first four games, we shipped 13 goals. We were throwing away comfortable leads. And what the manager, is now tried to do is say, well, okay, we're going to go from one extreme where, the midfield was wide open, we were being cut apart, to going back. I mean, people will say, well, going back to last season being hard to beat. Yeah, that's fine. But you still need to have something in that final third. And the problem is, when you are so rigid in your formation and when you're sitting so deep and you're allowing sides to just play out from the back, you're not going to be effective. You're reliant on scoring from a set piece or going long. And as we saw with the Beto equaliser that wasn't, hoofing the ball up and seeing if we can win a flick on, or one of the centre forwards can go through and score a goal. And that sort of smacks us. There's no attacking plan. I'm sure that there is, but when you're watching it as a fan, we've got to do more. And one of the most boring sides to watch in the Premier League. And as a neutral, you must sit there watching Everton when we're televised, thinking, what are we watching here? Because there's nothing in the attacking third at all.
I agree with you. It's horrendous going the game at the moment as well. I think it's for me. Obviously, I've been home and away probably for the last 3 or 4 seasons now, and it's just getting so tedious watching us play this long ball. And it's great when you're winning games or getting points, and when you need to get points at say the end of the season where you might be close to a relegation battle and you're scrapping for points here and there. But we're only 2 3 months into a season, and the thing that I find baffling is on game week 2 after the Spurs game when we got beat 4-0, the manager came out saying, we're talking about relegation battles again and saying we're miles off it. And it's kind of like, well, if you're putting that mentality on the team and you're putting them down so far, then maybe they will start playing like that. And if you're positive and going into games with positive mental attitude, I think you're more likely to get positive results out of it. So I think that's for me is the biggest thing. And it's just as you said, it's just so tedious watching Everton at the moment. But the second half of the Southampton game was probably where the biggest amount of chances were created and the biggest amount of flashpoints in the game. We'll start with our subs in that second half. What were your reaction to the substitutions? And obviously, Illiman and Jai coming off probably midway through that second half, and Michael Keane going up front once again.
I mean, the NGI one's one of them, isn't it? He said it was because he got a knock early on and he wanted to protect them. I think at the end of the game, he was hobbling over towards the away fans. So he's one of those players. He will always be one of those players who were targeted because let's get it right. He's our best attacking player by a country mile. He's our biggest threat. So if you go back to the Fulham game, they did really well because they put two on him at all times, and he pretty much made it difficult for him to even get involved in the game. So I understood it as much as it's frustrating because you know how good he is. Obviously, Calvert-Lewin going off in that situation again. It's 0-0 against Southampton. Go and try and win the game. Don't just go like for like and stick with the same formation. Say to Calvert-Lewin and Beto, right, two up top, take off. I mean, McNeil was a major doubt before the game, but he starts again. Now take him off and get the two lads up front because we saw what can happen. You go back again to the Fulham game when you put Keane up front with Beto, two big lads. They can cause problems. I think Southampton played three centre halves, so yet again, you're leaving you one centre forward, whether it's Calvert-Lewin, whether it's Beto, isolated and trying to fight for the ball with three players, and that's just no good. Go and win the game of football because what happened in the end? You went like for like and you got beat. Yeah. So you might as well have just gone with two up top. And if we lose the game, but we created chances and we were causing a threat, at least you can then say, well, you know what? He saw the issue. He was brave, and we tried to win the game. And as fans, you're more accepting of that as opposed to just bending over, sticking with one man up front and then getting hit on the counter attack and getting beaten.
Yeah, spot on. I think for me, as a fan, you can take it on the chin much more, can't you? If we've gone out to try and win the game and maybe been caught on the break by a lucky counter attack or something's bobbled in somewhere down the line, I think you can probably take it on the chin a lot more than setting up, going like for like, staying negative and maybe trying to fight for a point rather than going for all 3 points. But the thing that I find mad is obviously you talk about maybe bringing on Calvert-Lewin and Beto together and having, two up front in that game to try and win the game. I don't think we've ever seen Beto and Calvert-Lewin play together under Sean Dyche, or if we have, it's been for a very short cameo, maybe a substitution late on. I actually don't think he trusts Beto and Calvert-Lewin together, but I also don't think that we've coached them to play together. I don't think ever in Dyche's tenure have we maybe set up a training exercise where Beto and Dominic Calvert-Lewin can play off each other. I don't think that's ever maybe crossed his mind, which is kind of mad, but I don't know. I just feel like all these things and maybe putting Michael Keane up front again is just increasing the pressure on Dyche once again.
Yeah, I mean, totally. Apologies for the fireworks outside. It's absolutely crazy around here at the moment. But it's one of those. I mean, the whole Michael Keane situation and Michael Keane going up front, and we have a laugh and a joke about it, and we know he's a good finisher. We've seen him do it.
Mm.
In the 13, 14 goals he scored for the club, at least half of them have been fabulous strikes. Some from distance, and he was a midfielder who scored goals at Manchester United before he was
Yeah.
converted to a centre half. So we know what he's all about, and I'm not averse to it when it's needed.
Mm.
But the thing is, you have a striker on the bench, you have a striker on the pitch. Go and win the game and put them to a front before we look stupid. It's how many times do we see it where we don't, or the mindset is reactive and not proactive in terms
Mm.
of his substitutions or his changes of formation. So against Fulham, went 1-0 down, changed it because we've got to go and chase the game.
Yeah, yeah.
Southampton, we go 1-0 down really, really late on, changed it. But it's just, you've got to go and attack the game yourself and go and want to win the game. And I understand that we have, or he doesn't want to repeat those first four games and the goals that we were shipping. I get all that, but you've got to find a balance as well. And I think having Mangala back in midfield helps with Garner Gay.
Yeah.
I think obviously, I loved Tim Irabunum. I think he came in,
Mm.
had a really good impact on the side, but he's raw, he's green.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Gonna need a bit of time to understand his position. So I like Garner Gay in there with Mangala, so that gives us a bit more protection to say to the other lads, right? Okay, NGI, whether it's Harrison, Lindstrom, Calvert-Lewin, Beto, right? Go and be brave, lads. Go and try and take the game to them. Give them a little bit more of a freer role, and we'll hold our position here and we'll defend. And that's what really gets here, is that it's very much reactive changes all the time, and not looking to go and get on the front foot, take the game to them. And as I say, they were there for the taking. We created a few chances here and there. The Michael Keane header obviously being one. Better with the bar just before they scored. Chance for Harrison, wasn't there? And obviously the better goal, which was chalked off, which was, by the way, was a fabulous touch and fabulous finish. But it's just like it's all the time. You can, before a game even starts, you can say exactly what substitutions are going to be made and when he's going to make them,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
depending on the score. And
Yeah.
that is, it just goes back to this word predictability. And if we can see it as fans, then people who work in the business of football clubs in the Premier League
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
can also see it a lot quicker than we can, a lot easier than we can. And we've got to look to change that. And obviously we'll speak about other things later on, but
Yeah.
it was so frustrating to lose that goal in the manner that we did, by being hitting the bar, nearly scoring ourselves, getting caught on the counter, players looking leggy, players not sacking back. And then obviously a mad sort of 6 minutes trying to get a goal, trying to get equalised. And unfortunately, that kind of performance just isn't good enough. It's as simple as that.
No, I agree with you. But just before we wrap up as well, we need to talk about that Southampton goal because, how he was able to waltz in behind our defence and square it to Adam Armstrong just for an easy tap in that late in the game. Listen, I don't care. You can do all the bleep tests, you can do all the fitness tests you want. Players should be able to, especially under a Sean Dyche regime, players should be able to play for 90 minutes and track back and keep to their position and stop that from happening. And it just didn't happen. We were all at sea. We let him waltz in behind and square it for an absolutely easy tap in. And then, as you said, it created a mad 5-6 minutes where we were chasing the game, scrapping. And it also plays into your thing of saying, well, yeah, we're reactionary. We reacted to that with two substitutions and threw Michael Keane up front. It's just amateur stuff, really. And as you said, it's so predictable for teams playing against us. Listen, Southampton, fair play to them because they've got their first win of the season. They've managed to, get their first 3 points on the board. But that's a game we should be winning there. That's a game where we should be going to the South Coast and coming away with 3 points. And unfortunately, it feels like because the tactics have not, allowed us to play with fluidity and allowed us to create chances, it's meant we've come away with absolutely nothing. And they've scored a really easy goal on the counter attack. So we might as well talk about our full time thoughts as well. Who played well, who didn't play well, and we've already talked about the pressure back on Dyche. But before we wrap up, let's hear who played well and who didn't play well.
I think it's hard to sort of give credit to anyone, to be honest with you, in that situation. Obviously, you can't sort of single out every single person for the defeat. But I think as a collective, they've got to take responsibility. I think
Mm,
it's always easy to in the situation we're in to hide behind the manager and rightly so, by the way. He's under pressure, and I totally
mm,
agree with that. But too often we just see players just sort of going along with it because they know
mm,
the fall guy will always be the manager.
mm,
Well, play senior players on the pitch there have got to take the game by the scruff of the neck, get the players together and say, come on, let's take responsibility ourselves for this performance. And not just know that the manager's going to be criticised
mm,
at full time. I mean, Mangala was all right, wasn't he? We know
mm.
he's quite effective, as I said earlier on. He's good in that position. I like him. He's a neat and tidy footballer. Does the simple things, and sometimes you need a player like that. Nothing too fancy, but he's comfortable on the ball, which is what we need
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
sense of midfield. So he's probably the one that you can look at and go, he did all right there. I think the fullback struggled. I think
Yeah.
I think Michalenko's really struggled in recent
Mm.
weeks. Ashley Young wasn't great. But as I say, you win as a team and you lose as a team, and I don't think anyone came out of the game looking particularly great, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I agree with there. I think you've touched on Mangala. Beto is another player that I think came on, played well, took his second chance in a week of coming onto the pitch as a cameo and trying to affect a game late on when we're 1-0 down. So I think he's doing well under the circumstances of coming on late and trying to rescue points for Sean Dyche and Everton. But yeah, as you said, Mangala is another player that you can kind of single out and say he did okay, but I agree with you that the fullbacks massively struggled and also the centre halves as well seem to get bullied all afternoon long, which is it's just disappointing really to see us, and our centre halves playing like that is very disappointing. But yeah, I think it kind of sets us up on a bad note, doesn't it, going into the next few games? And obviously we've got an international break coming up as well. But West Ham next weekend is going to be an absolutely huge game and quite a difficult test because they're scrapping round near us, desperate for points. But it leaves us on a little bit of a sour note, doesn't it, going into the next few games?
It does, yeah. After getting a bit of momentum, five games unbeaten, although it doesn't sound a great deal because obviously there was three draws thrown in there, but it's all about momentum in football. And the Fulham game, as I say, we got away with one. So we made sure that we kept things ticking over with that point. You lose it then. I mean, you're always going to lose a game of football
Mm,
eventually, but it's always, as I always say, it's the manner of defeat. And when you're going to, for me, one of the worst sides in the league, and you're rolling over and having your belly tickled,
mm.
then that's not a good look. So we're now going to West Ham, two managers under pressure. You look at both sides, and West Ham fans certainly aren't too happy with their manager. Obviously, Everton fans, we're not happy with our manager particularly. So you sort of think that whoever may lose that game, if there is a loser, then potentially the jobs are on the line.
Yeah, spot on. Well, that's about all we've got time for today on the Toffee Blues and our extra time match review. Mike, it's been a pleasure having you on. Thanks very much for coming on.
No problem at all, mate. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Let us know your thoughts in the comments about the performance down at Southampton. I know you're confident going into the West Ham game this weekend. But that is all we've got time for. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll speak to you soon.